On a cold November morning in Seattle, Washington, Marcus Reed made a decision that would change several lives forever. He was driving home from work when he noticed a young woman standing outside a courthouse, holding a worn suitcase and staring at the ground. Something about her expression made him stop. Her name was Elena Carter. She was 29, exhausted, and visibly frightened. Marcus asked if she needed help. Elena hesitated before whispering that she had been released from a legal dispute involving her former employer. She had nowhere to go, little money, and no family nearby. Marcus offered her a ride. Elena explained that she had worked for a small technology company until its owner accused her of stealing confidential information. She insisted the accusation was false, but legal fees had consumed everything she owned. After months of pressure, she had signed an agreement that prevented her from speaking publicly about what happened. Marcus didn't know what to believe. He wasn't a lawyer, detective, or wealthy businessman. He was simply a maintenance supervisor at a Seattle hospital. Still, he remembered his mother's advice. When someone is scared, don't make them prove they deserve compassion first. He drove Elena to a modest hotel and paid for 3 nights. Elena stared at him in disbelief. Why would you do this for someone you don't know? Marcus smiled. Because tonight you need somewhere safe. Tomorrow we can figure everything else out together. The next morning, Marcus helped Elena contact a legal aid organization. An attorney named Rachel Morgan agreed to review her case without charging an initial consultation fee. Rachel listened carefully as Elena described her former employer, Pacific Vertex Solutions, and its aggressive CEO, Grant Holloway. Rachel immediately noticed inconsistencies. The documents Elena had signed contained unusual language, and several dates didn't match company records. Rachel asked Elena whether she had copies of internal emails. Elena said everything had been taken from her laptop after she was fired. Marcus remembered something unexpected. During his hospital job, he occasionally transported equipment between medical facilities. One former client had told him that Pacific Vertex's building used an old storage company he knew. Marcus contacted the company and discovered that archived servers were still being stored there. Rachel obtained the proper legal authorization to examine those records. What they found changed everything. Several emails showed Grant had instructed employees to alter financial records and blame Elena after she discovered unauthorized transfers from a company account. Elena couldn't believe it. I thought nobody would ever believe me, she whispered. Rachel looked at her seriously. Evidence doesn't need permission to tell the truth. The case suddenly became much larger. Federal investigators became interested because the financial transfers involved investors across several states. Employees who had remained silent began contacting Rachel. One former accountant provided additional documents proving that Grant had ordered the destruction of records. Grant denied everything. He hired expensive attorneys and claimed Elena had fabricated the evidence. He also accused Marcus of interfering with the company. Marcus became nervous when reporters started asking questions outside his workplace. Elena apologized. This is happening because you stopped that morning. Marcus shook his head. No, it's happening because people finally have evidence. But the chain reaction had only begun. One former employee, a software engineer named Tyler, contacted Rachel anonymously. Tyler said Grant had secretly maintained a second database containing information about employees who tried to report misconduct. Those workers had allegedly been threatened with termination and lawsuits. Rachel realized the investigation could protect dozens of people. The evidence was submitted to federal authorities. Within weeks, investigators obtained warrants and conducted searches at Pacific Vertex offices. Several executives were questioned. Financial accounts were frozen pending further investigation. Grant's carefully protected reputation collapsed almost overnight. But the biggest surprise came from the company's investors. They discovered that millions of dollars had been moved without proper authorization. Some investors had nearly lost everything. Others had trusted Grant because of his polished public image and promises of rapid growth. A special board meeting was called. The board removed Grant as CEO. Then they asked Rachel whether Elena would be willing to help rebuild the company. Elena laughed when she heard the question. Me? Rachel nodded. They need someone who understands what went wrong. Elena wasn't sure. She had spent months believing the company had destroyed her life. Now she was being asked to help save it. Marcus encouraged her. You don't have to return to the place that hurt you. I know. But if you want to change it, you might have a chance. Elena accepted a temporary advisory position. Her first recommendation was simple: create an independent employee protection office that reported directly to the board rather than management. Employees would have confidential ways to report misconduct without fear of retaliation. The board approved it. Then something nobody expected happened. Employees began reporting problems at other companies too. People who had heard Elena's story started contacting journalists and advocacy groups. A national conversation began about workplace retaliation and the dangers of silencing employees. Several companies voluntarily changed their reporting policies. A nonprofit organization offered Elena funding to create a national workplace protection program. She accepted. Within 2 years, the organization had helped thousands of employees understand their legal rights and find qualified assistance when facing retaliation. Marcus remained involved, but he never considered himself a hero. One evening, Elena visited him at the hospital. "You changed my life," she said. Marcus smiled. "I gave you a hotel room. You gave me a chance to breathe." She sat beside him. "If you had driven past me that morning, none of this would have happened." Marcus looked thoughtful. Maybe someone else would have stopped. But nobody did. He didn't know how to answer. Elena continued. "That one decision didn't just help me. It exposed Grant, protected employees, recovered investor money, changed company policies, and started a national organization." Marcus smiled. "Then maybe the lesson is that small decisions aren't always small." Elena nodded. "Exactly." Years later, Marcus attended a ceremony in Washington, D.C., where Elena received a national award for workplace advocacy. The room was filled with attorneys, business leaders, employees, and people whose lives had been affected by her organization. When Elena walked to the podium, she didn't begin by talking about Grant. She talked about Marcus. "I was standing outside a courthouse with one suitcase," she said. "I believed my life was over. Then one stranger stopped his car. The audience became silent. He didn't know whether my story was true. He didn't know whether helping me would cost him anything. He simply decided that leaving a frightened person alone wasn't the right thing to do." Marcus looked down, embarrassed by the applause. Elena continued. "That decision created another decision, and another, and another. One person helped me. I found a lawyer. Evidence was discovered. Employees found their voices. A corrupt leader was removed. A company changed. Then thousands of people received help." She paused. "We spend our lives waiting for opportunities to do something extraordinary. But sometimes extraordinary change begins with something incredibly ordinary." She looked toward Marcus. Stopping the car. The audience stood and applauded. Afterward, Marcus and Elena walked outside into the cool evening air. "You never told me what made you stop," Elena said. Marcus smiled. "I saw someone who looked like she had run out of choices. And now I know people don't always need someone to solve their whole life. What do they need? Sometimes they just need someone to help them reach tomorrow." Elena smiled. "That's what you gave me." "No," Marcus replied. "You did the rest." They stood quietly beneath the city lights. Marcus had never expected that one decision would expose a corporate scandal, protect thousands of workers, and create a movement. Elena had never expected that a stranger's kindness would transform her from someone fighting to survive into someone helping others fight for themselves. Neither could have predicted the chain reaction. But that was the lesson they carried forward. You don't always know what your smallest act will become. A door opened can lead to another door. A helping hand can create another helping hand. And one decision made with compassion can sometimes travel much farther than the person who made it ever imagined. Marcus had simply stopped his car. But that one choice had helped Elena find her freedom. And Elena used that freedom to help thousands of others find theirs.